Let him look at those documents that the government has blacked out, other than the cabinet confidentialities, and report back on whether this is a cover-up or whether the blackouts are legitimately justified. If Trudeau has nothing to hide, he will accept this compromise before I even walk out of this room today. And for God's sakes, he will do it immediately so that we can get our committee back to work.
And welcome back. As Ottawa continues to dish out billions in COVID-related support, the Parliamentary Finance Committee, which might normally be focused on holding the government accountable for that spending, has other priorities. Opposition MPs are continuing to push to reopen the We Charity probe, and it looks like they're making some headway. The Liberals, who have used every delay tactic in the books, are offering to resubmit unredacted versions of documents related to the creation and implementation of the Canada Student Service Grant Program. These documents were made public in August, but were largely blacked out. How will this development change the trajectory of the months-long We scandal? Let's bring in our MPs to discuss. Liberal MP Kevin Lamoureux is here, Conservative MP and finance critic Pierre Poilievre is here, and NDP MP and finance critic Peter Julian is also here. Gentlemen, thank you for being there. Welcome to Power Play and happy Monday. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Poilievre, because you're getting your unredacted, the We documents that you wanted. The parliamentary law clerk will decide which parts need to be blacked out. Cabinet confidence will remain protected as it should. So are you satisfied?
Let's find out what the parliamentary law clerk has to say. The government has said that it will give over now after the relentless pressure we've applied and after they threatened elections, shut down Parliament, and paralyzed the Finance Committee for over 5 weeks. They'll finally cough up about half of the documents they had previously blacked out. We want the parliamentary law clerk to look at it, to find out whether these were legitimate redactions or whether they are simply cover-ups. We want some answers from the Privy Council clerk, Ian Shugart, the top public servant, about how he defines cabinet confidences, and then we'll see what evidence comes forward. But remember, this is a scandal wherein the Prime Minister tried to give $500 million to a group that gave $500,000 in fees and expenses to his family. We need the truth to come out.
Well, you know, some of the truth seems to have already come out. But Peter Julian, let me ask you this. The Ethics Commissioner is investigating, the Ethics Committee as well. You know, don't you think at this point, not to say that, you know, you should not investigate the We scandal, that is not what I'm saying, but don't you think the Finance Committee now should be looking into, you know, the upcoming Liberal fiscal update? There has been an unprecedented amount of spending. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You know, should not the Finance Committee, and we know there's a fiscal update coming up, shouldn't it be doing that?
Well, you just mentioned it's an unprecedented level of spending. And what Parliament did when we rose on March 13th is gave the Finance Committee the overseeing and the responsibility to make sure that money was spent that actually benefited people. And we've seen a number of circumstances, not just the We Charity, but also the commercial rent relief, the first version that is tied to Liberal insiders, some of the purchasing equipment to former Liberal MPs.
How is it tied? No, wait a minute. How is it tied to Liberal insiders here? I just want to know what the question is, and shouldn't you be calling on businesses and poverty groups and social advocates, infrastructure people, to find out the picture of the spending of this government?
That's exactly my point, that we want to make sure that every dollar actually goes to benefit Canadians, actually goes to benefit small businesses. That was a responsibility given to the Finance Committee. For the last 2 months, we've been unable to carry out that responsibility because of the Liberal filibuster, and we need to move to do that vetting, to make sure that the money actually benefits small businesses. It actually goes to regular people, not goes to to people that in circumstances that are murky. That's our responsibility, and I don't understand why Mr. Trudeau is not is basically holding up what is a key responsibility given to the Finance Committee by the entire Parliament back on March 13th.
Well, then we can ask that question to Mr. Lamoureux, because it seems to me that you finally decided to send these documents, these unredacted documents, to the law clerk, who is the one who will redact whatever it needs to be redacted, seems to satisfy the opposition. So why the delay tactics? Why didn't you do that 2 months ago?
I think that we need to go back to the summer and do a bit of a review and first understand that the Prime Minister's focus, as the Liberal caucus focus has been the pandemic. And now we're in the midst of a second wave. That's where our priority and our focus is. Earlier today, what we had indicated is that, look, there was a commitment out of the committee during the summer that we would provide documents related to and there was expectations that redactations would be taken from cabinet confidences. That's what was naturally put and brought forward to the committee. So when you take a look at some of the changes that we're suggesting, is that, look, there were some privacy issues related to Canadians, and we're saying to the law clerk to review it. And if there are some changes in that area for redactation, by all means, the law clerk will be able to make those. But in terms of the cabinet confidence, in terms of the things that were not affiliated or associated with that stuff should be redacted. That's what the committee wanted back in the summer.
Yes, well, which is something you could have done, again, let me go back to that, months ago. I mean, nothing has changed. This is something you guys could have done months ago, because right now the Finance Committee is looking into and let me ask you, Mr. Julian, what exactly are you looking for? Are you just thinking there are murky things in there? There's stuff that, we've been going at this for months. We've been covering this for months. And, do you know specifically what you're looking for? Or you just want to cast a big net and hope something will stick?
No, it's very much asking questions. You'll recall that the Prime Minister prorogued Parliament in August, shut that down. When it came to light, for example, that the contract that was signed, that was untendered, wasn't signed with We Charity, but was actually signed with a shell foundation that had no assets. And the liability went back to the federal government. These are key questions that ultimately will cost Canadians a lot more if we're seeing this as a pattern. And there have been a number of other circumstances where I think there are red flags that we have the responsibility to get to the bottom of. And all parliamentarians voted to give that to the Finance Committee back in March. Okay.
Well, let me ask Mr. Polliver before we go, red flags. Give me one example of a red flag that is, look, my job is to be skeptical, and I'm just wondering what exactly you guys are looking for. And if there's something that you found, let us know. Or are, again, Mr. Polliver, what are you looking for?
Well, the first and most obvious red flag is that the government has gone to such lengths to cover it all up. 1,000 pages of black ink on these documents. The Prime Minister he shut down Parliament, threatened an election, and paralyzed the Finance Committee for 5 weeks, all for the purpose of preventing further investigation into this matter. But there are plenty of things we already know that contradict his excuses. He claims the public servants forced him to give money to this group, which had paid his family. But then we find documents from the Treasury Board Secretariat showing public servants questioned whether We Charity was actually capable of delivering the program for which Trudeau was paying them. And that's just one example of how the evidence contradicts the Liberal storyline. We know there are probably other bombshells buried in this 1,000 pages of black ink. That's why we want to look at them and get to the truth for Canadians.
Well, then we all hope that you will get to the truth, gentlemen. That's all the time I have, unfortunately. And you know that there are bombshells. You don't know that. You think that there are bombshells in there. And, I wish you luck. Thank you, gentlemen, for being there. We'll be talking about this again, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.